Welcome to Extraordinary Women TV. I'm your host, Shannon Skinner. Well, this is a show about women who listen to their hearts and take inspired action. And today I've got two of those women on the show. In the first half hour, you're going to meet author Carla Crothers, who's going to talk about Canadian comfort food. And later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top tip on creating a successful life. And you'll hear Carla's. In the second half of the show, I'll be joined by a singer-songwriter who turns her music into inspired healing. So stay tuned. Hello, Carla.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
It's great.
You drove down all the way from Aurora today.
Yes, I did. It was a lovely day, though. And I got here in record time. I was shocked.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it was good.
Now, you, by background, you are an accountant. You are an artist.
Yes.
You are an author.
Yes, a triple A.
A triple A, that's right, that's great. Now, as an accountant, I know that you do this as something that you do that really pays your bills, because you have also other things that are in your heart to bring out into the world.
Yes. Well, actually, I like numbers, too. I love math, so it's like going to the math club every day. So that's always fun, but it also is the foundation so that I can be an artist and I can write cookbooks and I can be other things because I don't have to worry about where's the money coming from.
Yeah, because of course as accountants you would understand where the money's coming from,
yes.
where it's going very well.
Yeah, you need that. You need it.
That's right, yeah. Now, you also, something that's very interesting about you is that you have a PhD in metaphysics.
Yes, I got that actually because I went on a healing journey. And through the journey I learned, because I'm a little bit a bookie, if you know what I mean, and I love to learn, and I did the traditional courses, I did non-traditional courses, I did all kinds of things, and then I ended up, I already had a business degree, so I just went a little further and ended up getting a PhD in metaphysics because of my PhD was simply on, I believe that we, people, are the erythrocytes, or the red blood cells of the universe. So if you looked at, if you took a microscope and you looked at a live blood sample, you would see a bunch of red blood cells scurrying around looking completely chaotic. If you pull back on that lens, you would see just a red mass. Pull back more, you'd find skin. Pull back more, you find a human. If you look at us under a microscope, we're scurrying around looking like we're going nowhere, and some people are, but a lot of people have found their dharma, and they're starting to, even though in a chaotic way, go to where they're supposed to be. So if you pull back, you're going to find a planet. Pull back even further, you'll find a universe, and within all of that is God.
So, you know, a metaphysics PhD is something that you don't hear of often.
No, well, basically, you know, I say metaphysics meaning before the physical. Because
right.
What you're learning is about energy and thought processes, and it's an interesting field because you actually never see it. In other words, you only know that there are protons because there's protein. You only know that there's photons because there's light. You don't ever actually see a photon.
That's right, the human eye doesn't see it.
Right. So it's the same thing as knowing the neighbor has a dog because you see the paw prints in the snow. You don't actually have to see the dog to know there was a dog there.
So there's evidence.
There's evidence,
right.
But it's evidence that it's already left.
Now, you know, and you, of course, are an artist.
Yes, I love to paint. And that actually happened to me during menopause. During the time you're birthing your most creativity, and I was compelled. When I say compelled, I had to paint. I'd never painted before. But I absolutely had to do it. And I did it prolifically for about 2 years solid. I've been in art shows, I've won some awards, I've sold lots of paintings, and I do it when it moves me.
And your work is based on, it's impressionist.
The reason it's an impressionist is because I can't actually paint anything.
Oh.
So,
right.
You know, I say, oh, that's a poppy, and people believe me. So it's all good. It's basically.
So it's a good lesson. If anybody wants to paint and they don't really know how, just be an impressionist.
Be an impressionist.
Yeah,
and say
right.
that's my impression of, and people believe you. So
that's a good tip.
Yeah, it works out. Works out.
Well, now your journey something we were talking about earlier this morning was, one of the reasons you studied your metaphysics was to heal yourself.
Yes, I got a diagnosis of cancer in 1982. And I was devastated. I figured, that's it. It's over for me. Curtains. I'm finished. But then I got a sense, whether it was a deep knowing, which I wouldn't have known that term back then, that I didn't get this diagnosis to die. It wasn't to leave my children motherless. It wasn't to leave my parents childless. I'm an only child. It was because I was not living my authentic life. So it was a big kick in the ass. Can I say that? Big kick in the ass?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
So to get me onto
the 10 things you're not supposed to say on television. It's okay. We can get by with it today.
Okay, kick me in the butt. To live the kind of life that I should be living. You know, I was living I was uninspired. I got through the day. I got through the day. You know, and so through that, I did have some surgery, but I chose not to have chemo, which was bold and certainly not something I recommend. But this was 1982. There were no designer chemos. It was one size fits all, and I didn't want to be sick. I wasn't sick, so I didn't want to feel sick. So I started doing everything. I went to shul. I went to church. I did everything had never done before. I meditated. I had wheatgrass colonics. I ate raw food. I ate completely cooked food. You name it, I did it. 18 months later, I didn't have cancer anymore. And I've never had it since. And I don't need it again. It was a great gift, but you only need it once because it stays with you.
And you learn then what
you learn what you're supposed to, provided you learn what you're supposed to learn. Otherwise, it'll keep hitting you in the face. So that took me on a journey of learning more and more and more and more because my doctor, I said to my doctor, who I completely trusted, was my doctor for years, why did this happen to me? And he said, it's a random molecular accident. So I looked at him, and here's a man with a good education. I thought, you're the stupidest person I've ever seen in my life. And it felt like a sliver in my soul, which also surprised me because I didn't think I had one until that very moment. And I realized there are no random molecular accidents. It's impossible. This is such a great orchestra. It's a universe, a one song. How could there be an accident? So that took me on my journey, and I guess it took me from 1982, I got my PhD in 2000. So it was a long journey, but it was a great journey. And then at the end of all of this learning and doing, I ended up quitting smoking and writing a cookbook.
Now your cookbook. No, you're here, of course, to talk about
Yes.
your cookbook.
Yes.
Of course, it's called Carla's Cooking Canadian Comfort Food.
That title came from my daughter because we tried to decide what kind of food is it. And we're all Canadian. And we love comfort, and it's comforting food. So Canadian comfort food. And I looked it up on the internet, and there aren't any Canadian comfort food cookbooks. So there's lots of American ones. And the only Canadian cookbooks are mainly French or historic.
So what is Canadian comfort food?
Well, exactly. Exactly. What is it? It's everything that we've eaten around a table for years. And your family comfort food could be completely different than mine.
Well, yeah, of course, comfort food in my family would consist of pierogies. My mother, is Ukrainian, so pierogies and cabbage rolls mixed with food from the other side, which would have been pork roast or roast beef. So yeah.
So everybody has a different background, and of course, those my mother's original heritage was Irish. And then she married an Italian, and then she married a Ukrainian, Polish guy. So I have it all, Italian, Irish, and there's some Iroquois somewhere in there. So we have everything. And it's just what you like to eat. And I have shepherd's pie, I have lasagna, I have pierogies, I have all of those things. So it's, because Canadians are a mutt. You know, we're a Heinz 57, a group of people who have all kinds of fantastic ethnicity, whatever. Yes, some word like that. It didn't sound right, but anyway. So bringing that to the table, and my mom had passed away. And about a year after she passed away, my daughter and I went up to the cottage, and we were cleaning out some things. And we found an index card with my Aunt Lillian's Swedish meatballs, handwritten by Mrs. Lillian Branston. That was my mother's sister's name. And when I found the recipe, I thought, she died when I was 10, my mom's sister. And I thought, I remember her, and I remember those meatballs. So if I don't grab this recipe and type it up and put it in one place, it's going to be lost. And then I found some of my mother's recipes, and then I found some of my father's mother's recipes, and before you know it, all of the women of my life showed up at the dinner table. Because as we were cooking this food, they show up, and their spirit is there.
So this is not really
a cookbook?
A cookbook. This is something that's deeper, more meaningful.
Certainly to me, certainly more meaningful. And I think it also is inspiring other people to remember. Somebody will say, oh, I remember my aunt so-and-so made a great shepherd's pie. And then those memories come back, and they go home and they make a shepherd's pie, whether it's from my book or on their own, and their Aunt Mabel shows up to help them.
And Carla, what was that moment that you decided that you wanted to put all of these recipes together?
I think it was then when I found my Aunt Lillian's meatballs. I thought, you know what, if I don't, I'm going to gather, because I had them, piece of paper over here and things typed on the computer and blah, 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 blah. And my daughter taught a vegetarian cooking class, so she had a few recipes she's given me. So I had all of these recipes from past generations, from future generations, and I thought, it's also to be more organized. I'll put them all in one place. I'll get a book for my daughter, who can then pass it on to her children, who can pass it on to their children, and all of us will remain at the table, at the family table, forever. And then people started asking me, well, is your warm potato salad in there? Yeah. Oh, I'll buy a book. Book? What book? It wasn't a book. It was just going to be a group, a collaboration. Anyway, it ended up being a book. And my daughter's written some things in there, and it's my whole family is in that book.
Now, we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk more about Canadian comfort food. But before we do take a break, that's my Good to Know Minute, and I know, Carla, that you've got a great tip for my viewers.
I do. I would have to say that my secret to my life is detaching from the outcome. That just go for it. I'm a go for it expert. Try it. It doesn't matter what happens at the end, because if you're too concerned about the result, you're not going to do it well. So just do it. Just do it. Just write a book, sing a song, paint a picture, get a degree, phone that person that you've been not wanting to phone for a while. Whatever it is you want to do, just do it. Who cares what happens?
Well, thanks, Carla. So just do it. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, more with Carla Crothers and Canadian comfort food. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Carla Crothers, author of Carla's Cooking Canadian Comfort Food. And of course, we're having a discussion about what is Canadian comfort food. A hodgepodge, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Because Canadians are a little bit of everything.
Very true, isn't
yes,
it? So it's a reflection of our culture.
It is. And we're hardy. The women, think about Canadian women. We're hardy. We're satisfying. We're rich. We're beautiful. We're deep. We're comfortable. And we're delicious.
Well, that sounds really good to me.
So's the food, right? So that's what it is. It's women, all of the women of my life, and certainly, I'm sure, the women of your family and the women of every other Canadian woman's family.
Now, we were talking about about your cookbook and how you pulled it together, and that the fact that it's more than just a cookbook. This is really about
it was cathartic.
Memory lane.
It was
a journey down memory lane.
It is, yes, for sure.
So, tell me a little bit about the women that whose recipes you pulled from.
Mostly, they're my mom, and my mother was a great cook. And, you know, years ago, it was hard to be gourmet, but I remember she used to take a cucumber and drag a fork down the edge and slice it, and then we had these little cucumber flowers, and we thought it was so fancy. And she would sit and watch Julia Child or Martin Yan, you know, Yan Can Cook, and then she'd make her version, and we'd all enjoy it. So it was always fun. She loved to cook. And my grandmother, not my mother's mother, she wasn't a very good cook at all, but my father's mother was Italian, and she just loved to cook. She's the one who taught me that the most important ingredient is love. Don't cook when you're mad, don't cook when you're upset, because then everybody will get mad and upset when they eat it. So you have to cook with love.
Like water for chocolate.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's an old school thing. But so that's her. And then my daughter, who's she's a nutritionist and a hippie and sort of very earthy, and she's taught me a whole other thing about enjoying food the way it comes from the garden or the way it's raised. And she does she's a locavore, so she's into the whole local thing and eating organic, and so that's brought me to a whole other level too.
So you've learned a lot from the women that,
absolutely,
that the ones that are in your life today, and those that aren't, at least physically, they come to your dinner table.
Yes.
In a different way.
Yes, there's no more physicality, but they're still there.
Right.
Big time. Because the only thing that's, when someone passes on, really the only thing you can no longer do is make new memories. But you can relive the old ones in a new way, so technically you're making new memories.
So what is your favorite recipe in this cookbook?
You know, I thought you were going to ask me that. They're all great. I didn't put in the yucky ones.
It's a tip. If you're going to write a cookbook, don't put in the yucky ones.
But I have to say probably Rose's Little Red Sauce, which is my father's mother's pasta sauce, although in Italians call it gravy.
Right, gravy.
Gravy. So it was her gravy that she would put on macaroni, and there'd be lots of people around. And so I think that I like that one the most because it's the simplest and everybody can do it, and it's really easy to make, so anybody can try it, and then they can put their own spin on it, so it becomes their little red sauce. It's a gift to everybody.
And you know, you were also sort of mentioning a distant relative of yours.
Yeah, a cousin of mine, who my grandmother, that's her sauce in there, my grandmother was his great-grandmother.
Right.
So we used to gather at her house for macaroni on Sundays, and she died in 1977. So that sort of waned, obviously, and I rarely ever see that group of people. Not because I don't like them, just because no one ever gets together anymore. Everyone's so busy. So he bought the book online, because you can get it on my website at, what's my website? www.carlacrothers.com. So he ordered it. And he was flipping through and he saw Rose's Little Red Sauce and her picture. So he thought, oh, I'm going to make this. I remember that. And so he made it and he shared it with his daughter, who'd never heard these stories. So she's now had a whole family history over a plate of spaghetti.
Now, Carla, you know, we had a discussion earlier, and I told you that, of course, I don't cook.
So I hear.
Almost at all. But if I was to cook, what recipe would you suggest would be ideal for someone who doesn't really know what they're doing?
Well, first of all, the recipes in there are really simple, because most of the women who created them weren't chefs, weren't professional cooks, didn't know a lot about cooking. So all of them are simple. But what I can tell you is the step to learning to cook is learning to consciously eat. So first you start to really enjoy your food.
I love my food.
Okay. Then just think of a flavor and an ingredient and try it. Don't take it so seriously. It's just, you know, grill some chicken and throw some honey and mustard on it. And actually, honey mustard chicken. That's a great, easy, fast recipe.
Honey mustard chicken.
Yeah.
So my next party.
Yes, just, and you know, there's a lot of good dips in there that are really simple to put together too. There's a go-to dish in there that's made with canned asparagus, if you can believe it, and artichoke hearts and spinach and cream cheese. It's easy.
Well, sounds delicious. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting too about this book is that you actually self-published it.
Yes, I did.
And what was that experience like? Because it's becoming more and more popular,
yes.
Self-publishing for authors.
Yeah, and you know, actually it was kind of metamorphic, because it started out as just I was going to put all these recipes together and three-hole punch them and put them in a binder for myself and a binder for my daughter, and people started asking, is this recipe in there and is that recipe and blah, blah, I'll buy a book, I'll buy a book. And so I started thinking this should be a book. So I ended up getting it printed several times and playing with it a little bit, and I learned a few things along the way. One is if you go to a printer and just try it out, like, you know, print it off, have a look at it, and you're going to make some changes. The first edition, people called me right away with all kinds of mistakes I'd made. Now, the great thing is they're reading it. fantastic. And
That's good news.
That's great
yeah, thank
news.
you for seeing the
Thank
mistakes.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I fixed those. So it's important when you for me, the trick was you can get an ISBN number simply by going on the website. Just Google ISBN Canada. You can then put it on, there's another barcode generator website that will give you the whole ISBN thing that you put on the back of the book. You can have it coil bound. You can have it, I mean, printers will do anything. So a lot of it is, but my one tip would be just print a few in the beginning and make sure, or have somebody that you trust do a lot of proofreading.
And then tell your family members.
And sell it to everybody that you know. Carry one with you at all times.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
So did you hire an editor? Did you hire services?
I didn't actually. I did it myself.
In the end, okay.
In the end, I did it myself. I didn't know there was a lot of services out there. I've since learned that there's people like yourself. There's lots of people that you can go to that will help you. I didn't know that at first.
Right,
so I've learned that.
And where I can help authors is, I help authors get publicity. So
yeah, and publicity is important.
Right.
And there are, on the website, if you go onto Google and just say, write a book, there's all kinds of people that do formatting for you, will do the typing for you, I mean, I was pretty lucky because it's a cookbook. So the content is pretty easy. But taking a good picture, for example, or having Photoshop, or it's also having the software. I don't have all that software, so.
Having worked with a number of photographers over the years, a number of them said to me that the hardest, most difficult photos to get are really great still shots of food.
It is difficult.
Presentation is very difficult to pull
I'm
together.
really lucky. My daughter takes pictures of everything she eats. And she did those photos, most of the photos in the book, she took pictures of. Now, in some cases, it took a few times of making the recipe because I would make the food and then we'd eat it and forget we were supposed to take a picture. So I had to make it again, but that's okay. So it took over a year to do the book. So it's also something I want people to realize it's not going to happen overnight.
Right, it's a process.
It's a process, and it's fun, and it's cathartic, and it's, we got to eat it all. So.
And you can share it with your family and friends, and what a wonderful gift to give
it was great.
To everyone around you. So.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't necessarily do another cookbook, but certainly I would encourage other people to pull their family recipes together, because one day they'll be lost if you don't.
Well, thank you for that. Now, I'm afraid our time is up, and I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here. I've enjoyed meeting you. It's been great.
And thank you for driving all the way from Aurora this morning.
Thanks, Shannon.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, you are going to meet Kalita, singer-songwriter, human rights advocate, and wow, what an inspiring story she has. Stay tuned.